My name is Dr. Catherine Wells, and I have been the director of the Regional Blood Center in Phoenix, Arizona for 8 years. In that time, I have overseen thousands of blood donations and processed hundreds of thousands of blood tests. Our center serves 12 hospitals across the Phoenix metropolitan area. And we pride ourselves on maintaining the highest safety standards for blood collection and testing. On a typical Thursday morning in November, a man named Thomas Mitchell walked into our donation center. Thomas was not a new donor. According to our records, he had been donating blood regularly for the past 6 years, always passing our health screenings with perfect results. He was what we called a gold standard donor, type O negative universal donor, clean medical history, and consistent donation schedule every 8 weeks. Thomas was a quiet man in his mid-40s who worked as an accountant for a mid-sized construction company. He was polite, punctual, and never caused any problems during the donation process. Our staff knew him by name, and he always brought homemade cookies for the volunteers. "Good morning, Thomas," said Maria Santos, our senior phlebotomist. "Right on schedule as always." "Good morning, Maria," Thomas replied with his usual soft smile. "How has your week been?" As Thomas went through the standard pre-donation screening, temperature, blood pressure, iron levels, and health questionnaire, everything appeared completely normal. His vitals were excellent, and he reported no recent illnesses or medications. "Thomas, you know the routine," Maria said as she prepared the donation kit. "Any recent travel, new medications, or health concerns since your last donation?" "Nothing at all," Thomas replied. "Same job, same routine. Feeling perfectly healthy." The donation process went smoothly. Thomas donated 1 pint of blood, as he had done dozens of times before, and spent the required recovery time in our waiting area, sipping orange juice and eating graham crackers. "Thanks again, Thomas," Maria said as he prepared to leave. "We will see you again in 8 weeks?" "Absolutely," Thomas said. "Same time, same place." After Thomas left, his blood donation went through our standard processing protocol. We separate whole blood into its components, red blood cells, plasma, and platelets, and run a comprehensive panel of tests to ensure the safety of the blood supply. The initial tests for infectious diseases came back clean, as they always did with Thomas's donations. No HIV, hepatitis, syphilis, or any of the other standard screenings we perform. But it was during the routine genetic typing and compatibility testing that something unusual appeared. Dr. James Rodriguez, our laboratory director, called me into his office that afternoon with a concerned expression. "Catherine, I need you to look at something unusual in the Mitchell donation from this morning," he said, pointing to his computer screen. I looked at the test results displayed on the monitor. The basic blood typing showed Thomas as O negative, consistent with all his previous donations. But the extended genetic analysis revealed something that should have been impossible. "James, these results cannot be correct," I said. "Run the tests again." The genetic markers in Thomas's blood indicated that he was not just O negative. He was what geneticists call a universal immune donor. This meant his blood contained genetic factors that could potentially be compatible with any recipient, regardless of their blood type or genetic background. "I have already run the tests 3 times," Dr. Rodriguez replied. "Catherine, this type of genetic profile appears in less than 1 in 50 million people. And there is something else." He pulled up additional test results. Thomas's blood contains antibody levels and immune factors that are off the charts. His immune system appears to be functioning at a level that should not be possible in a normal human. I stared at the data on the screen. Thomas's blood showed resistance to virtually every known pathogen we tested for, including some experimental viruses that we used only for research purposes. Could this be a laboratory error? I asked. "That was my first thought," Dr. Rodriguez said. "But I personally supervised all the testing." "Catherine, if these results are accurate, Thomas Mitchell has the most medically significant blood type ever documented." The implications were staggering. Blood with Thomas's genetic profile could potentially save lives in cases where no other donor match was possible. It could be used for patients with rare blood disorders, immune deficiencies, or genetic conditions that made them incompatible with normal blood donations. James, we need to contact Thomas immediately, I said. If his blood has these properties, he could help patients that no other donor can help. But Dr. Rodriguez looked troubled. Catherine, there is one more thing. I ran Thomas's blood against our database of previous donations, and something does not add up. He showed me Thomas's donation history over the past 6 years. Every single donation had shown normal O-negative blood with standard genetic markers. There was no indication of the extraordinary immune factors we were seeing in today's sample. That is impossible, I said. Blood type and genetic markers do not change. Exactly. Dr. Rodriguez agreed. Which means either Thomas has undergone some kind of medical treatment that altered his blood chemistry, or the person who donated blood today is not the same Thomas Mitchell who has been donating here for 6 years. I felt a chill run down my spine. If someone was using Thomas Mitchell's identity to donate blood, and if that person's blood had unusual properties, we could be dealing with a serious security issue. James, I want you to pull every test result from Thomas' previous donations and compare them to today's sample. Look for any gradual changes over time that we might have missed. Already done, he replied. Catherine, the change was not gradual. Between his last donation 8 weeks ago and today, Thomas Mitchell's blood became completely different at the genetic level. As I tried to process what Dr. Rodriguez was telling me, I realized we might be facing a situation that went beyond medical anomaly. If someone's blood chemistry could change so dramatically in just 8 weeks, we needed to understand how and why. James, I think we need to contact the authorities about this. The authorities? Catherine, what kind of authorities handle cases of impossible blood chemistry? I thought about it for a moment. The kind that investigate medical mysteries that could affect public health and safety. That afternoon, I made a call that I never thought I would have to make as a blood bank director. I contacted the FBI. The FBI took my call more seriously than I had expected. Within 4 hours of reporting Thomas Mitchell's unusual blood test results, 2 federal agents arrived at our blood center to examine the evidence. Agent Sarah Williams was a specialist in medical fraud and biological crimes, while Agent Michael Chen worked in what he described as unusual health threats. Both agents seemed genuinely concerned about the implications of what we had discovered. Dr. Wells, Agent Williams said as she reviewed Thomas's donation records, can you walk us through exactly what made you suspicious about this donor? I explained how Thomas had been a regular, reliable donor for 6 years with perfectly normal blood chemistry, and how today's donation showed genetic markers that were medically impossible. Agent Williams, in my 8 years running this blood center, I have never seen blood chemistry change at the genetic level. I said, what we are seeing suggests either sophisticated medical fraud or a biological phenomenon that challenges our understanding of human genetics. Agent Chen was studying the laboratory results with Dr. Rodriguez. Dr. Rodriguez, these immune factors in the blood sample, are they naturally occurring? That is the question, Dr. Rodriguez replied. The antibody levels and immune responses we are seeing are far beyond normal human ranges. They suggest either genetic engineering or exposure to some kind of medical treatment enhanced immune function. Agent Williams looked at me. Dr. Wells, we need to contact Thomas Mitchell immediately. Can you call him and ask him to return to the blood center? Of course, I said. But what do I tell him? Tell him there was an issue with his blood test and we need to repeat some procedures, Agent Chen suggested. Do not mention the FBI involvement until we have a chance to speak with him directly. I called the phone number in Thomas's donor file, but the call went straight to voicemail. I left a message asking him to contact us as soon as possible regarding his donation. Agent Williams, while we wait for Thomas to respond, can you tell me what kind of medical fraud might involve altering blood chemistry? I asked. There are several possibilities, she replied. Someone could be using stolen medical identity to donate blood for financial gain. Or they could be attempting to introduce contaminated blood into the medical supply system. Agent Chen added, but given the enhanced immune properties of this blood sample, we might be dealing with something more complex. There are criminal organizations that traffic in rare biological materials. Dr. Rodriguez joined our conversation. Agents, I need to show you something else we discovered. He led us to his laboratory and pulled up additional test results on his computer. When I analyzed Thomas's blood more thoroughly, I found traces of pharmaceutical compounds that are not available to the general public. What kind of compounds? Agent Chen asked. Experimental immune-boosting medications that are currently in clinical trials, Dr. Rodriguez explained. These drugs are only available to patients in authorized research programs at major medical institutions. Agent Williams and Agent Chen exchanged glances. Dr. Rodriguez, could these medications explain the dramatic change in Thomas's blood chemistry? Possibly, he replied. But the concentrations we are seeing suggest either massive overdose or long-term exposure to multiple experimental drugs. Agent Chen made some notes. We need to check if Thomas Mitchell is enrolled in any medical research programs or clinical trials. As we were discussing the medical implications, my assistant knocked on the laboratory door. Dr. Wells, there is someone here to see you. He says he is Thomas Mitchell, and he received your voicemail. Agent Williams immediately became alert. Dr. Wells, ask him to wait in your office. We want to observe this conversation. I went to meet Thomas, who was waiting in my office looking concerned. He appeared exactly as he always did. Average height, slightly graying hair, wearing the same type of business casual clothes he always wore when donating blood. Thomas, thank you for coming back so quickly, I said. We need to discuss some unusual results from your blood test today. Thomas looked genuinely puzzled. Unusual results? Is there something wrong with my blood? Am I sick? His reaction seemed authentic. He appeared to be sincerely concerned about his health rather than worried about being discovered in some kind of fraud. Thomas, your blood test showed some unusual characteristics that we have never seen before, I explained. We need to run additional tests to understand what might have caused these changes. What kind of changes? Thomas asked. Agent Williams and Agent Chen entered my office at that moment, showing their FBI credentials. Mr. Mitchell, I am Agent Williams and this is Agent Chen. We are investigating some medical anomalies related to your blood donation today. Thomas's reaction was immediate and telling. Instead of surprise or confusion, his expression became guarded and fearful. Federal agents? Thomas said quietly. What does my blood donation have to do with federal investigation? Agent Chen sat down across from Thomas. Mr. Mitchell, your blood test results today showed genetic and chemical properties that raise some serious questions. We need to understand how and why your blood chemistry has changed so dramatically. Thomas was quiet for a long moment, as if weighing his options. Finally, he looked directly at Agent Williams. Agent Williams, what I am about to tell you will sound impossible, but it is the truth. My blood has changed because I am not entirely human anymore. The room fell silent. Agent Williams and Agent Chen looked at each other, then back at Thomas. Mr. Mitchell, what do you mean by not entirely human? Agent Chen asked carefully. Thomas took a deep breath. 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer, multiple myeloma, stage 4. The doctors gave me less than 3 months to live. He paused, looking at his hands. A researcher at the National Cancer Institute approached me about participating in an experimental treatment program. They were testing gene therapy techniques that could potentially cure cancer by modifying the patient's immune system at the genetic level. Agent Williams leaned forward. Mr. Mitchell, are you saying you underwent genetic modification? I am saying that the treatment worked, Thomas replied. Not only did it cure my cancer, but it enhanced my immune system beyond normal human levels. The researchers told me that my blood now contains genetic modifications that could potentially help other patients. Dr. Rodriguez, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped into the room. Thomas, that would explain the pharmaceutical compounds and enhanced immune factors we found in your blood. Thomas nodded. The treatment involved multiple experimental drugs over several months. The researchers warned me that the modifications would be permanent and that my blood would be medically significant. Agent Chen made notes. Mr. Mitchell, who were these researchers? What institution conducted this treatment? Thomas hesitated. Agent Chen, that is where the story becomes complicated. The treatment was conducted by a private research organization, not the National Cancer Institute. And I am beginning to suspect that what they did to me was not entirely legal. Thomas E.'s revelation that he had undergone experimental genetic modification through a private research organization immediately raised red flags for the FBI agents. Agent Williams asked Thomas to provide as much detail as possible about the treatment program. "Mr. Mitchell, I need you to tell us everything you remember about this private research organization," Agent Williams said. "Their names, location, what they told you about the treatment, and any documentation you might have." Thomas reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. The organization was called Meridian Biological Research. "They contacted me through my oncologist after my cancer diagnosis." Agent Chen examined the business card. It was professionally printed with a Phoenix address and phone number, but no website or additional contact information. "Thomas, did you visit their facility?" Agent Chen asked. "Yes, multiple times over 6 months," Thomas replied. The facility was in a medical complex in Scottsdale, but it was unlike any medical facility I had ever seen. Very high security, advanced equipment, and researchers who seemed to be working on projects far beyond conventional medicine. Dr. Rodriguez joined the conversation. "Thomas, can you describe the treatment process?" The treatment involved weekly injections of what they called genetic modification vectors, Thomas explained. Each injection contained different compounds designed to modify specific aspects of my immune system. Thomas paused, looking uncomfortable. "The researchers told me I was part of a program to develop medical treatments that could potentially eliminate cancer, genetic diseases, and even aging itself." Agent Williams made detailed notes. "Mr. Mitchell, did they tell you how many other patients were receiving similar treatments?" "They mentioned that I was one of 12 subjects in the program," Thomas said. "But I never met the other participants. Each patient was treated individually and told not to discuss the program with anyone." Agent Chen looked concerned. "Thomas, did you sign any consent forms or legal agreements?" "Yes, extensive paperwork," Thomas replied, "including non-disclosure agreements and liability waivers. They told me the treatments were experimental and that there could be unknown side effects." Agent Williams and Agent Chen exchanged glances. If Thomas was telling the truth, then Meridian Biological Research was conducting unauthorized human genetic modification experiments. "Mr. Mitchell, when was your last treatment?" Agent Williams asked. 3 months ago, Thomas said. "They told me the modification process was complete and that I should continue my normal activities, including blood donation, to help them monitor the long-term effects." This explained why Thomas had continued donating blood regularly. He was unknowingly providing follow-up data for the researchers. Dr. Rodriguez had a medical question. "Thomas, did the researchers explain how the genetic modifications work?" "In general terms," Thomas replied. "They said they were introducing modified genes that would enhance my immune system's ability to recognize and destroy cancer cells, viruses, and other threats." Agent Chen leaned forward. "Mr. Mitchell, did they mention anything about the military or government applications of this technology?" Thomas looked surprised by the question. "Not directly, but there were several times when I overheard conversations about enhanced human capabilities and biological advantages. I got the impression they were working on more than just cancer treatment." Agent Williams asked the critical question. "Thomas, do you have any way to contact the researchers or access the Meridian facility?" "I tried to contact them last month when I started experiencing some unusual symptoms," Thomas said. "But the phone number was disconnected, and when I went to their facility, the building was empty." This was concerning. If the researchers had disappeared, it suggested they were either hiding from authorities or had completed their work and moved on. "What kind of unusual symptoms?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. Thomas looked embarrassed. "Enhanced physical capabilities. Better vision, faster reflexes, improved strength and endurance. It is like the genetic modifications enhanced more than just my immune system." Agent Chen made more notes. "Mr. Mitchell, have you told anyone else about these treatments or symptoms?" "No one," Thomas replied. The non-disclosure agreements were very clear about the consequences of discussing the program. Agent Williams stood up. "Mr. Mitchell, I need you to understand that you may be the victim of illegal medical experimentation. We are going to investigate Meridian Biological Research, but we need your full cooperation." "Of course," Thomas said. Agent Williams, I just want to understand what was done to me and whether it poses any danger to others. Dr. Rodriguez had been thinking about the medical implications. Thomas, your enhanced blood could potentially help patients with immune deficiencies or genetic disorders. But we need to understand the safety and long-term effects before using it therapeutically. Agent Chen addressed the security concerns. Mr. Mitchell, if there are 11 other people with similar genetic modifications, they could represent either a significant medical breakthrough or a serious security risk, depending on who controls the technology. Thomas looked worried. Agent Chen, are you saying the other subjects could be dangerous? We do not know, Agent Williams replied honestly. But genetic modifications that enhance human capabilities have obvious military and security implications. As our meeting continued, I realized that what had started as an unusual blood test had uncovered what might be the largest case of unauthorized human experimentation in modern history. Agent Williams turned to me. Dr. Wells, we need to secure Thomas's blood sample and all related test results. This is now evidence in a federal investigation. Of course, I replied. But what about Thomas's continued blood donations? His blood could potentially help other patients. Agent Chen considered this. For now, Mr. Mitchell should suspend blood donations until we understand the full scope of what was done to him. Thomas nodded. Agents, I want to help with your investigation. If these researchers did something illegal, or if other people are at risk, I need to do whatever I can to help. Agent Williams handed Thomas her business card. Mr. Mitchell, we will be in contact with you regularly as we investigate Meridian Biological Research. In the meantime, please report any unusual symptoms or contact from anyone claiming to be associated with your treatment program. As the FBI agents prepared to leave, Dr. Rodriguez asked one final question. Agents, should we be concerned about other blood donors who might have undergone similar treatments? Agent Williams paused at the door. Dr. Rodriguez, I think we should be concerned about a lot of things. This case may be much bigger than any of us realize. Over the next week, Agent Williams kept me informed about the FBI's investigation into Meridian Biological Research. What they discovered was far more extensive and concerning than any of us had anticipated. Dr. Wells, Agent Williams said during a phone call, we have found evidence of similar operations in at least 6 other cities across the United States. She explained that the FBI had identified a network of private research facilities, all using different names but connected through shared funding sources and research protocols. Each facility had been conducting unauthorized genetic modification experiments on terminal cancer patients. How many subjects are we talking about? I asked. At least 72 individuals across all the facilities, Agent Williams replied. All of them were terminal cancer patients who were approached with experimental treatment offers. The scope of the program was staggering. Someone had organized a nationwide network of illegal medical research facilities, specifically targeting people who were desperate enough to try experimental treatments. Agent Williams, have you located any of the other subjects? That is the problem, she said. Most of them have disappeared. Some moved away after their treatments. Others seem to have deliberately gone off the grid. This was troubling. If dozens of genetically modified individuals were scattered across the country, it raised serious questions about what they were doing and who might be controlling them. What about the researchers? I asked. We have identified several key figures, but they have also disappeared, Agent Williams explained. However, we did discover some interesting connections. She told me that the funding for Meridian Biological Research and the other facilities had come from a series of shell companies that ultimately traced back to a private defense contractor with connections to military research programs. Are you saying the military was involved in these experiments? I asked. Not officially, Agent Williams replied. But there are indications that someone was developing enhanced human capabilities for potential military applications. The next day, Thomas came to see me at the blood center. He looked worried and had been experiencing what he described as unusual episodes. Dr. Wells, I have been having experiences that I cannot explain, Thomas said. It is like I can sense things that are happening around me, even when I am not directly observing them. What kind of things? I asked. Yesterday, I knew that someone was following me before I actually saw them. Last night, I could hear conversations from apartments above and below mine, even though the walls should have blocked the sound. Thomas's description suggested that his genetic modifications were continuing to enhance his capabilities beyond what the researchers had told him to expect. Thomas, have you been in contact with Agent Williams about these symptoms? Yes, and she wants me to undergo additional testing, Thomas replied. But Dr. Wells, I am starting to think the genetic modifications are not finished. I think they are still changing me. This was concerning. If the genetic modifications were ongoing rather than complete, Thomas could continue developing enhanced capabilities, and we had no way to predict or control the changes. At that moment, my assistant informed me that Agent Williams had arrived and wanted to speak with both Thomas and me immediately. Dr. Wells, Mr. Mitchell, Agent Williams said as she entered my office. We have discovered something that changes everything about this investigation. She showed us photographs of documents recovered from one of the abandoned research facilities. The documents described something called Project Evolution, a program designed to create genetically enhanced humans who could serve as the foundation for a new phase of human development. According to these documents, the cancer treatment was just the cover story, Agent Williams explained. The real purpose was to test genetic modifications that could create humans with enhanced physical and mental capabilities. Thomas looked at the documents with growing alarm. Agent Williams, are you saying they were not trying to cure cancer? They were curing cancer, she replied, but only as a side effect of the genetic enhancements they were really trying to achieve. Agent Williams showed us more disturbing information. The documents indicated that the enhanced subjects were intended to be the first generation of what the researchers called Homo superior, genetically modified humans who would eventually replace normal humanity. This is insane, Thomas said. They told me I was helping to develop cancer treatments. Mr. Mitchell, according to these documents, you and the other subjects were test cases for genetic modifications that could theoretically be applied to any human, Agent Williams said. The researchers were developing technology to enhance the entire human species. I tried to process the implications. Agent Williams, are you suggesting this was some kind of eugenics program? More than that, she replied. We believe this was the beginning of an attempt to artificially accelerate human evolution through genetic engineering. Thomas stood up and began pacing. Agent Williams, if this is true, then what am I? Am I still human or am I something else? Before Agent Williams could answer, Thomas suddenly became very still and alert, like an animal sensing danger. Someone is coming, he said quietly. Multiple vehicles moving fast. Agent Williams immediately became alert. Mr. Mitchell, how do you know that? I can hear them, Thomas replied. And I can sense that they are looking for us. Within seconds, we heard the sound of vehicles pulling into the blood center parking lot. Agent Williams drew her weapon and moved to the window. Dr. Wells, we need to get out of here immediately, she said. Those are not law enforcement vehicles. Thomas looked at Agent Williams. Agent Williams, I think the people who created me have found us. As we prepared to leave through the back exit of the building, Thomas demonstrated capabilities that confirmed our worst fears about the genetic modifications. He moved with speed and coordination that was clearly beyond normal human ability. Dr. Wells, Thomas said as we reached the exit, I think I am about to find out what I was really created for. Agent Williams spoke into her radio, calling for backup, but we all knew that help might not arrive in time to prevent whatever was about to happen. The conspiracy was much larger than unauthorized medical experiments. Someone had been attempting to create a new kind of human being, and Thomas Mitchell was proof that they had succeeded. As we exited through the back of the blood center, Agent Williams led us to her vehicle while calling for FBI backup. But Thomas stopped suddenly and turned toward the front of the building. They are not here to hurt us, he said with certainty. They want to collect me. Collect you? Agent Williams asked. The genetic modifications included some kind of tracking or communication system, Thomas explained. I can sense the other subjects. Some of them are here. Before we could reach Agent Williams's car, 3 people approached us from different directions. They moved with the same enhanced coordination that Thomas had demonstrated, and I immediately knew these were other subjects from the genetic modification program. "Thomas," one of them said, a woman in her 30s, "it is time to come home." Agent Williams kept her weapon drawn but did not aim it at anyone. "Identify yourselves. Are you subjects from the Meridian Research Program?" "We are what Thomas is becoming," the woman replied. "Enhanced humans who have accepted our role in the next phase of human evolution." A man who appeared to be in his 50s stepped forward. "Agent Williams, we are not your enemies. We are trying to protect humanity from threats that normal humans cannot perceive or defend against." Thomas looked confused. "What threats?" "The researchers never mentioned any threats. Because the researchers were only implementing the first phase," the woman explained. "The genetic modifications were designed to prepare us for contact with non-human intelligence. This revelation changed everything. If the genetic modifications were preparation for contact with extraterrestrial or non-human intelligence, then the entire program took on a different significance." "Are you saying there are non-human threats?" Agent Williams asked, though she seemed skeptical. The older man nodded. "Agent Williams, your government has been aware of non-human intelligence for decades. The genetic modification program was developed as a defensive measure." Thomas looked at me, then back at the other enhanced humans. "Why was I not told any of this?" "Because the knowledge comes naturally as the modifications progress," the woman explained. "Thomas, you have been having enhanced sensory experiences because your brain is developing capabilities that will allow you to detect and communicate with non-human intelligence." I found myself believing what they were saying, despite how impossible it sounded. Thomas's enhanced abilities, the sophisticated genetic modifications, and the government's interest in the case all pointed to something far beyond normal medical research. Agent Williams lowered her weapon. "If what you are saying is true, then why has the FBI been investigating this as a legal medical experimentation?" "Because most government agencies do not know the real purpose of the program," the older man replied. "Only a small group within the Defense Department was aware of the true objectives." Thomas stepped closer to the other enhanced humans. "What happens now? Do I go with you?" "That is your choice," the woman said. "But Thomas, if you stay in normal human society, your abilities will continue to develop, and you will eventually become unable to relate to normal humans." Agent Williams looked at Thomas. "Mr. Mitchell, these people could be telling the truth, or they could be part of an elaborate deception. You need to decide what you believe." Thomas closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, he seemed to have gained a new understanding. "Dr. Wells," he said, turning to me, "I can sense that everything they are telling us is true. The genetic modifications were not just about enhancing human capabilities. They were about preparing us for contact with something that most humans are not equipped to handle." He looked at Agent Williams. "Agent Williams, your investigation uncovered the truth, but it is only part of a much larger picture." The woman gestured toward a vehicle I had not noticed before. "Thomas, there are others like us working to protect humanity while preparing for what is coming. We need your help." Thomas looked at me one final time. "Dr. Wells, thank you for everything you did to help me understand what was happening to me. But I think my real work is just beginning." As Thomas walked toward the vehicle with the other enhanced humans, Agent Williams called after him. "Mr. Mitchell, how do we contact you if we need more information about the program?" Thomas paused and smiled. "Agent Williams, if humanity ever needs our help, we will know." The enhanced humans left as quietly as they had arrived, leaving Agent Williams and me standing in the parking lot trying to process what we had just experienced. "Dr. Wells," Agent Williams said, "I think we stumbled onto something much bigger than medical fraud." Over the following months, the FBI's investigation into the genetic modification program was quietly classified. Agent Williams told me that higher authorities had taken over the case, and that the official conclusion was that Meridian Biological Research had been conducting unauthorized medical experiments. But I knew the truth was more complex than that. Thomas Mitchell and the others like him were not victims of illegal experimentation. They were volunteers in humanity as preparation for a future that most of us could not imagine. I never saw Thomas again, but I sometimes wonder if he and the other enhanced humans are out there, protecting us from threats we do not even know exist. His blood donation that Thursday morning had revealed not just unusual genetic modifications, but evidence of humanity's next evolutionary step. The blood center returned to normal operations. But I never forgot that some of our most routine medical procedures can sometimes uncover the most extraordinary secrets. Thomas Mitchell came to donate blood, but what we discovered changed my understanding of what it means to be human. Sometimes I look at our regular donors and wonder if any of them might be carrying similar secrets. But I have learned that some knowledge comes with responsibilities that not everyone is prepared to handle. Thomas was right when he said his real work was just beginning. And perhaps for the sake of humanity's future, that is exactly what we need.